Hello, today I am showing you how I created the piece called Chasing the Light. I started by blocking in the dark areas in the sky. There's a lot of clouds in this piece with the sun shining through the clouds, so I wanted to get the dark areas in first. I then started building up with very light layers of colour, just getting the purples, the blues, the pinks, as well as the yellows in, just getting the base colours in before blending it with odourless solvent using a filbert brush. I'm using a fair amount of the solvent at this point because I probably should have had a few more layers than that before trying to blend. As you see, in some areas it didn't blend very well. I then continued layering, just building up those layers of those clouds. I'm adding a lot of pink and yellows in there and getting the clouds a bit more vibrant than what they were before. These first few layers always tend to look a bit yucky. That's sort of the ugly phase in all pictures. They don't really come to look really good until the later layers when you're getting closer to finishing the piece. I just continue blending it out and adding different colours. Here I've sort of started adding some of the darker colours in, the greys and the blacks, just to start deepening those colours in the sky. I found at this point that I was finding it hard to judge the colours in the sky because of the white in the bottom half of the piece. So I ended up going onto the water and then coming back and finishing the sky afterwards. I defined the shadows in the clouds a bit more at that point, just trying to add a bit more shape to the clouds. And using a white luminance pencil there, I added sort of some highlights into those clouds. I start blocking in the colours of the water, keeping my pencil strokes quite horizontal. I do that for the whole water section because you need to have the lines going horizontal, because the waves in the way the ocean looks is that it has a lot of horizontal lines. So if you do start drawing in all sorts of directions, that will come through in the final piece and it'll look a lot more haphazard and not really look like water. I've used some white to mark where the waves are breaking, and you got to make sure you get that white down so that you don't cover it with colour. If you cover it with colour, you'll find it hard to get it back to quite a white colour. I'm blocking in where the lines are for these waves that are coming up onto the water's edge, and being a little bit rough with them. I'm not following a reference photo for this part of the picture. I had a reference photo for the sunset and for the horse, but not for this part of the beach. I'm sort of making it up as I go for this section, which was a lot of fun to do. I've gone back over the darker waves and with black and making them a lot darker than what they were. You really do need to get those darks in on the waves, otherwise they won't look quite as realistic, especially with it being a sunset with the light coming from behind. Those shadows on the waves are quite dark. Now I'm just finishing up on the sky, going back and changing how it looks. I found that the colours need to be a lot more vibrant than what I had done before, so I adjusted the values now that the water's in place and I can actually see what I want. I go back and make a lot of the shadows a lot darker as well. Now onto the horse. I've used two main colours on the horse, which are black and caput mortem violet. And I've used these across pretty much the entire horse as my base colours, with a bit of the white Polychromos pencil on top. I found that the white Polychromos pencil had enough opacity for this picture, for the sheen on the horse. I didn't need the luminance pencil, so that was quite good. Sometimes you don't need to use a white luminance pencil, other times you do, depending on the look that you're after. With this, the mane, I'm not following the reference photo completely. Making sure that I get the locks of hair, the clumps of hair in the right sort of general spot, but I'm not being pedantic about getting it completely right. I figured near enough is good enough for this picture. With the body of the horse, the approach I took was to go over the dark areas with the black and block in where those darker shadows were with a heavier hand, and then going over the lighter areas with a light hand. So you can see that where the different shadows were. I then went over with the kaput mortar violet before blending it out. I then went over again in the black to darken some of the shadows, and then added the highlights with the white. And I did this approach across the whole body of the horse and the legs. With the horse, I would pay close attention to where those little shiny spots are on the horse and the dark shadows, because they will actually give a indication of where all the muscles are. So if you get those highlights in the wrong spots and those shadows as well, it will make the horse look wrong. I'll continue over the rest of the horse, just finishing off the hooves before going on with the sand. And the sand I kept quite simple. I did layers of black, blue, pink, blended it all out, and then I went over it in white. And the white just makes it look a little bit shiny. I then go over the horse, adding pinks and yellows to sort of add highlights coming from the sunset to make it look like the horse is running with the sun shining on it from one side. Added a few lightning strikes with a luminance white pencil. And that brings us to the end of this very short video. I have longer videos over on my Patreon account, so if you're keen to see hour-long videos, check that out. Thanks.